Okay, this one's special. I found it on a Korean forum about a week ago, and I keep going back to it because every time I reread it, I notice something new. It's like a story with secret compartments. Let me just read it to you, and watch your face. The apartment where my mother died was small. 23 Pyeong, on the 6th floor of a beige building in Mapo, with a view of nothing in particular. Some mornings the light came in at exactly the angle it had the year she got sick, and I would stand in the kitchen and forget for a moment that she was gone. I made coffee in her cup. The chip on the rim was still there, the small brown one from the time she dropped it in the sink the year I turned 12. The building was not fashionable, not Gangnam, not one of those places young Korean women my age were supposed to live. It was where my mother had raised us, and it was mine. Junho came out of the bedroom in the t-shirt he had bought me the summer before. He had never asked whether I wanted him wearing it. He had simply decided that some things belonged to both of us. He put his hand on my waist as I poured. He did not say good morning. He kissed the back of my neck instead. That was his way. We ate at the small table my mother had eaten at. 2 eggs, 1 piece of toast each, banchan from the market downstairs. He read the news on his phone. I read nothing. My phone lit up with a cacao talk from my sister. Uni, dinner tonight? The 3 of us? I miss you. I smiled at the phone the way you smile at photographs of people you love. It did not occur to me that Sora had been suggesting these dinners every week for the last 6 months. Sora had introduced me to Junho 2 years earlier. She had said, "You'd like him, Uni? He's steady, not like the others." She had said it the way you say things about someone you have already vetted. I had assumed she meant she had known him from work. Junho at that first meeting had shaken my hand with the slight formality of a man who was practiced at meeting other people's older sisters. I did not think about it again for 2 years. I thought about it every day of the 2 years after that. The photograph of my mother sat on the shelf between the window and the door. She was smiling in it. She had died before I could tell her I was thinking of children. My mother had left the apartment to me and money to Sora. Sora had said at the time it was fair. She had said it twice. I went to work. I designed English curricula for a hagwon in Uido. I liked my job in the way you like a shoe that fits, without noticing. The day passed the way ordinary days pass. Curriculum drafts, lunch with a colleague, a meeting about a new campaign. Nothing worth remembering. The dinner was at a samgyeopsal place in Hapjeong. Sora had chosen it. Sora chose most things now. I had stopped noticing when Sora ordered for us. She reached across the grill to serve Junho first, the small pieces off the top of the pile, the ones with the most fat. I registered it the way you register a small draft in a warm room. Something is different. Something is not quite. Then someone laughs and you forget. Sora touched Junho's forearm as she reached for the kimchi. He did not move his arm. He also did not move it away. This is what family looks like, I told myself. You should be glad they get along. Sora paid the bill. She insisted. She always insisted, in the specific Korean way that leaves no room to insist back. At home, Junho held me from behind while I brushed my teeth. He said I looked tired. He said he loved me. He said both things in the same breath. I fell asleep before he did. I did not see him check his phone in the dark. The following week, he began working late. Not every night. Just enough nights that it began to become a rhythm without ever becoming a pattern. On the weekend, he canceled the reservation we had made 3 weeks earlier. His mother, he said. His mother needed him. His mother was fine. Sora replied to my messages within seconds. Sora was always available now. She had never been that available before. I told her I was fine. I told her Junho was busy. I told her I was probably imagining things. She agreed. She agreed too quickly. I bought the pregnancy test on a Tuesday at the pharmacy near the subway because it was farther from home than the pharmacy on my corner. I took 3 of them because the first one seemed impossible, and the second one seemed like a mistake, and the third one seemed like an argument. All 3 said the same thing. I sat on the closed lid of the toilet for 11 minutes. I know it was 11 because the microwave in the kitchen kept updating and I could hear each minute change. Then, all at once, I felt something I had not expected. Joy. Not the loud kind. The quiet, private kind that arrives before you have permission to feel it. I decided to tell him at dinner on Friday. I would cook doenjang jjigae. It was his favorite. I would say it quietly, over the last bite, the way my mother had told my father about me. He came home late, 40 minutes late. He said sorry the way he had begun saying sorry, like a receipt handed over quickly. I served the jjigae. He ate it the way you eat food when you are already thinking about the next thing you have to do. I waited until he set his spoon down. I put mine down first. I said the sentence I had rehearsed in the bathroom. I'm pregnant, I said. I said it calmly. I said it looking at him. I said it once. His face did 3 things in the space of 1 second. Surprise arrived first, which was the right thing. Calculation arrived second, which was not. Control arrived third, his features resettling into the smooth composure of a man deciding what version of himself to present. That's unexpected, he said evenly. He picked up his water glass. He put it down without drinking. The word unexpected went into the room and stayed there. Not wonderful. Not when did you know. Unexpected. Like a delivery you did not order. I need some time to think, he said. He said it the way you say things you have already thought. He did not call for 2 days. On the 3rd day, he asked me to meet him at a cafe on the corner of Hongdae. Not at home, somewhere public. He arrived first. He was already seated by the window when I came in. He had ordered tea for himself. He had not ordered anything for me. I don't think I'm ready to be a father, he said. He said it quickly, the way you rip off a bandage. He said it looking at the mug and not at me. I need you to make the decision that makes sense for you, he said. Not us. You. I looked at him then, and I understood something I did not want to understand. He was not just breaking up with me. He was releasing himself from the outcome. You've talked to someone about this, I said. Not a question. He said nothing. That was the answer. I stood up. I put on my coat with the care of someone dressing a body. I did not say goodbye. I walked home in the cold air without noticing the cold. The apartment was very quiet when I opened the door. It had always been quiet. I had never noticed. I sat on the couch in my coat. I sat for a long time. I did not cry. My throat closed around something that was not grief and not anger. 6 days later, in the 2nd week, I woke up in the middle of the night to a warm wetness and a low cramp and a specific fear that arrives fully formed. I called a taxi. I sat in the back with my hands folded in my lap. The driver asked if I was okay. I said yes. It was easier than the truth. The hospital confirmed what I already knew. They used the correct words. The words did not help. The nurse gave me a pamphlet. The pamphlet had a drawing of a flower on it. I put the pamphlet in my bag, and I never opened it. I took a taxi home at 4 a.m. The city was empty. The apartment was empty. I lay on the couch in my coat, and I did not sleep. I did not call Junho. Junho did not call me. The silence between us became its own kind of communication. I did not eat for 2 days. On the 3rd day, Sora let herself in with the key she had insisted on keeping for emergencies. She sat on the edge of the couch. She put her hand on my back. She cried quietly for a moment. She said, "Unnie, I'm so sorry." She was very good at it. I want that to be recorded. She was the correct amount of upset. She said the correct things. She did not overplay. She made me eat. She made me shower. She made me drink water. She sat with me while I cried the first time. She held me while I cried the second time. On the 5th day, she said the sentence I would think about for the rest of my life. "Honey, I think you should talk to someone, a doctor. I know a good one, just to help you rest." I said yes. Of course I said yes. My mother had raised me to say yes to Sora. That was the arithmetic of being an older sister in our family. Dr. Kim's office was in a professional building near Yonsei University. His waiting room smelled of new carpet. His diplomas were arranged with precision. Dr. Kim was in his 60s. Silver hair, wire glasses, the face of a man who had listened to too many private things and had stopped being surprised by any of them. He asked me questions. He wrote things on a pad. He mentioned the word depression in the way you mention the weather. He mentioned the word hospitalization in the same way. "Just for a few weeks, Unnie," Sora said from the chair beside me, "so you can rest properly, so you can be looked after." The admission papers were on a clipboard, many pages, small print. Sora held my elbow while I signed. My hand felt very far away. One of the papers designated my legal guardian for the purposes of the admission. Sora signed as guardian. I did not read the section. I did not read any section. The psychiatric ward was on the 6th floor of a large hospital in the north of Seoul. The elevator opened onto a small vestibule with a locked door and a keypad. The intake nurse was efficient. She weighed me. She cataloged the contents of my bag. She kept the phone. She kept the shoelaces. I changed into the patient clothes in a small changing room. Pale blue-gray cotton. The tag inside had been worn soft by other bodies. My room had 2 beds. One was empty. The other had a woman in it. She was small. Her hair was going gray, and she had not dyed it. She looked up when I came in. She looked at me for a full 3 seconds before she said hello. She looked at me the way you look at a piece of evidence. "Insuk," she said. That was all. She went back to her book. The first days blurred. The pills arrived on a small paper cup at 8, 12, 6, and 10. I took them because a nurse watched me take them. The pills made my thoughts a soft gray. Not gone, just not sharp enough to catch on anything. I slept a great deal and remembered very little. Sora visited on Saturdays. She brought tangerines and small cakes and once a small potted plant. She brought paperwork. "Just insurance things," she said. "Just routine." I signed what she gave me. My hand was slow, but it moved. The pen felt like it belonged to someone else. She watched me sign. She always watched me sign. The nurse who managed our floor was called Nurse Han. She was warm with Sora. She laughed with Sora. She called Sora by her first name. With me, she was efficient. She was correct. She was never cruel. She was also never warm. I noticed this the way you notice the temperature of a bath after you are already in. Insuk watched all of this from her bed with the paperback held open in front of her face. I did not know yet that she was watching. I did not know yet that she was reading nothing. On the 3rd Saturday, after Sora left, Insuk set her book down on her chest and looked at the ceiling and spoke without turning her head. "Your sister brings you a lot of paperwork," she said. She said it the way you say something you have been waiting to say for a long time. I said, "Just insurance, just forms." Insuk turned her head then. She looked at me. Her eyes were not medicated. Her eyes were very awake. "Get the copy," she said, "before her next visit. From the ward office. Your medical file has everything you have signed. That is the law. Ask for it." "Why?" I said. My voice sounded far away to me. Insuk did not answer right away. She looked at the door of our room for a long moment. Then she looked at me. Then she said only one word. Red. I did not sleep well that night. I did not sleep well, and yet the pills would not let me stay awake. I lay in the dark and watched the strip of corridor light under the door. In the morning, I went to the ward office. My legs were unsteady. I asked for my file. I said the words Insuk had told me to say. The clerk hesitated. She looked at me the way you look at something inconvenient. She said, "Your guardian usually handles paperwork." I said the second sentence Insuk had told me to say. I am the patient. The file is legally mine. Please bring it, or I will file a complaint with the ward director this afternoon. The clerk got the folder. She set it on the counter between us the way you set down something you would rather not touch. She did not offer me a chair. I opened the folder in the corridor because I did not want to open it in front of the clerk. I stood against the wall. I turned the pages slowly. The first page was standard. The second page was standard. The third page was a power of attorney granting my sister authority over my property. My signature at the bottom. The signature was mine. The signature was also not quite mine. The final stroke went too far. That was not my final stroke. The next page was a sales contract for the apartment. My apartment. My mother's apartment. The buyer was a name I did not recognize. The deposit had been paid into a joint account. Not my account. The names on the joint account were two. My sister. And Junho. I stood against the wall of the psychiatric corridor, and I did not move for a very long time. The high, thin tone arrived behind my eyes, and the corridor dropped 1 degree. I walked back to the room. The corridor was long. I remember counting my footsteps, not because I wanted to, but because my mind had latched onto them the way a hand latches onto a railing on a moving train. Insuk was sitting up in her bed. She had put the paper back down. She had been waiting. I sat down on my own bed with the folder in my lap. I did not cry. My throat had closed around something that was not grief. It was mathematics. Insuk waited. She did not ask what I had found. She did not offer sympathy. She let me sit with it until I was ready to speak. That was the first kindness I had received in 6 weeks that did not want anything in return. "How did you know?" I said finally. My voice was steady. I had not expected it to be steady. Insuk was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Because the same thing was done to me, 12 years ago. My husband, my business, this room." She had been a paralegal at a mid-sized firm in Junho. She had built a small side practice helping women with divorce and property. Her husband had thought her clients were his competition. He had her committed after their second son was born. Postpartum depression, he told the doctors. She was a danger to the children. She signed the admission because he had said it would be 2 weeks. 2 weeks became 6 months. 6 months became her signing the sale of her practice. By the time she got out, she had no clients, no license, and a husband with a new woman living in her house. "I lost," she said. She said it the way you name a weather system. "I am not going to let you lose." She explained the law to me then. She explained it the way you explain arithmetic to a child. She started with the words, bohoja. Guardian. Under Korean psychiatric statute, a designated guardian has extraordinary powers. A guardian can make property decisions for the patient's welfare, she said. The statute says welfare. It does not say permission. That is the crack. That is the crack your sister climbed through. She explained that as long as I was in here, my signature was suspect. My sister's signature was gold. Every day I remained here was a day the sale advanced. Every day I remained here was worth money to them. "Can I stop it?" I said. Insuk thought about the question for a long moment. "You can," she said, "if you are careful." And if you are willing to become a person your sister will not recognize. The plan she gave me had 3 parts. First, I was to sabotage every future signature. Small errors, nothing dramatic. Enough that a forensic examiner could later distinguish signed by me from signed under influence. Second, I was to get a letter out of the ward to a lawyer. A specific lawyer, Attorney Cho, in Seodamun. In-suk had used her before. In-suk had lost, but Cho had learned. Third, I was to keep taking the pills, all of them, perfectly. The nurse who watched me had to see nothing. My sister who visited me had to see nothing. My performance had to be my medication. Mrs. Yoon was in the room across from ours. She was 61. Her daughter visited every Wednesday with a small tin of homemade tteok. In-suk had known Mrs. Yoon for 4 years. In-suk spoke to Mrs. Yoon in the day room the next morning. 2 women drinking bad ward coffee. To anyone watching, a conversation about the weather. Mrs. Yoon nodded once. That was all. The next Wednesday, when her daughter visited, my folded letter was inside the empty tin she took home. The wait was 6 days. I do not remember the 6 days. I remember taking the pills. I remember signing what Sora brought. I remember the exact wrongness I put into each signature. On the 7th day, Mrs. Yoon's daughter came again. This time the tin was full of tteok. Under the tteok, folded in wax paper, was the answer. Attorney Cho would take the case. She had already run the account. She had already run the sale filing. She had already run Sora's phone number against public records. She wrote, "We have more than we need. Do exactly what I say." I burned the letter over the wardroom sink with a lighter In-suk had somehow obtained. She did not tell me how. She said it was better if I did not know. The next Saturday, Sora arrived with the same paper bag of tangerines. She sat across from me at the visitor room table. She said, "You look better, Annie. Are you sleeping better?" I looked at her. I looked at her the way you look at a photograph of someone you used to know. And I smiled. I smiled the medicated smile. I said, "Yes, a little." She brought 2 papers this time. She placed them in front of me the way you place a treat in front of a patient dog. She said, "Just insurance, nothing important." I signed them slowly. I made the wrongness look like fatigue. The final stroke drifted too long. The dot on the 2nd syllable of my name landed off-center. Sora watched me sign and did not notice. After she left, Nurse Han came in to collect the tangerines Sora had brought. She smiled at the door where Sora had gone. She said out loud, to no one in particular, "That sister of yours takes such good care of you." That night, in our room, In-suk told me the last piece I had not put together. Nurse Han had been Sora's classmate. Awa University, nursing program, year of graduation matched. The nurse had not been placed on my floor by chance. Sora had used a favor. Someone in the hospital's administrative office had rotated a friend into position. My monitoring had been outsourced to a friendship. Attorney Cho's 2nd letter came the following Wednesday. She had done the deeper investigation. She wrote in the specific dry tone lawyers use when they are trying not to editorialize. The joint account bearing Sora's and Junho's names had been opened at Hana Bank, Gangnam branch, on March 14th. 4 months before my breakup with Junho. 4 months before the pregnancy. I sat with that date for a long time. March 14th. I remembered March. I remembered Junho making me breakfast on a Saturday in March. I remembered the samgyeopsal dinner where Sora had reached for the kimchi. That had been April. They had opened the account before he had left me, which meant they had already decided he would. The pregnancy had not been the cause. The pregnancy had been an inconvenience they had folded into an existing plan. I did not cry. Some things are past crying, Some things reorganize you at a level below the level where tears live. In-suk said, "Now you understand what you were to them." I said, "I do." She said, "Say it out loud." I said, "I was an apartment." That night I could not sleep. Not from grief, from arithmetic. My mind kept running the same equation and arriving at the same answer. I got up at 3. I went into the small bathroom attached to our room. I sat on the tile floor with my back against the wall. I thought about my mother. I thought about how she had raised us. I thought about how she had always chosen me. First bowl of rice, first cup of tea, the last piece of anything good. Sora had grown up in the shadow of that choosing, and I had grown up in the light of it, and I had told myself the light was mine because I had earned it. I had not earned it. She had just not been chosen. I remembered the girl in high school Sora had ruined. A friend of hers. A small rumor started in the 3rd year. The friend had transferred schools before graduation. I had watched Sora smile at her memorial video during the reunion. I remembered the boyfriend she had convinced everyone was violent. He had not been violent. I remembered the coworker who had lost her promotion. I remembered a dozen small cruelties I had watched and told myself were coincidences. I had seen all of it. And I had chosen to believe that family was the exception. My denial had been my consent. That was the sentence I said out loud in the wardroom bathroom at 3:14 in the morning. The bathroom door opened. In-suk came in her patient clothes. She sat down on the tile floor beside me. She did not touch me. She sat close enough that our shoulders were not quite touching. She said, "You did not let this happen. You survived a family that raised her to be capable of this. Those are not the same sentence." Something in me shifted then. Not warmth, not comfort. A recalibration. A small, clean, mechanical click, like a key finally finding the right slot. I went back to bed. I slept for the first time in 7 days. When I woke, the corridor light coming under the door was the first light of morning, and I knew what I was going to do. Attorney Cho filed the emergency petition on a Thursday. She filed for immediate suspension of the guardianship pending forensic examination of the signatures and audit of the sale contract. Dr. Kim was called to testify. He was not a hero. He was a professional. When shown the forensic preliminary, he cooperated in the specific way of a man protecting his own record. He did not defend Sora. He also did not go out of his way to condemn her. The judge suspended the guardianship the same afternoon. The sale was blocked pending investigation. The joint account was frozen. Attorney Cho called In-suk that evening on the ward's public phone. In-suk told me on the walk back to the room. I was released the following Tuesday, 6 weeks and 3 days after Sora had signed me in. I walked out of the 6th floor vestibule at 10 in the morning with my own clothes on and the small overnight bag they had returned to me. I did not go to the apartment. I could not go to the apartment. I went to a small hotel in Insadong that Attorney Cho had chosen for me. My name was not on the reservation. My sister's private investigator would have to work harder if she wanted to find me. I sat in the hotel room in my coat for a full hour. The room had one window. The window looked out on a courtyard with a persimmon tree. The tree was bare. It was late November. Attorney Cho arrived at 4. She brought a folder. She brought a plan. She said, "We can pursue this criminally, or we can pursue this quietly. Which do you want?" I thought about the criminal court. I thought about the reporters. I thought about my mother's photograph being shown on a small screen at the back of a television studio. I thought about Sora in a cell. "Quietly," I said, "recover the money, reverse the sale, get me my mother's apartment back if it is not too late, and leave the rest to me." Attorney Cho worked for 11 days. The sale contract was voided on procedural grounds. The buyer had bought in good faith, and the money in the joint account was more than enough to compensate them without requiring the apartment itself to change hands. Junho was called in to give a statement. Attorney Cho recorded the meeting. Junho arrived in a rumpled suit and did what he had always done. He narrated events he had co-authored in the passive voice. He signed a statement in exchange for immunity from criminal referral. He testified that Sora had originated the plan. He testified that the account had been her idea. He testified in the tone of a man arranging his career survival. I did not want to see him. I did not need to see him. Attorney Cho asked me if I wanted to. I said no. I already know everything I need to know about that man. The one thing I wanted was the memorial. My mother's second-year memorial was scheduled for the following Sunday, at my uncle's house in Bushin. Sora would be there. The whole extended family would be there. That was where it would end. I dressed carefully that Sunday morning. Dark gray trousers, a cream blouse my mother had bought me the year before she died. My hair pulled back. No makeup. I looked in the small hotel mirror, and I did not recognize myself, and I did not mind. The uncle's house was full when I arrived. Aunt at the kitchen. Cousins in the living room. The ceremonial table already set with the mother's portrait and the arranged foods. The specific choreography of Korean jesa. Sora arrived 20 minutes late. She wore a cream coat over a black dress. She embraced the aunt. She embraced the uncle. She embraced me. She said, "Unnie, you look so much better. I have been so worried." I let her embrace me. I did not embrace her back. I stood with my arms at my sides. She did not seem to notice. Or she noticed and chose not to notice. That has always been her particular art. The ritual proceeded in its order. The bowing to the portrait, the pouring of the ceremonial cup. The moment of shared silence for the mother. I bowed exactly the correct depth. Sora bowed slightly deeper, in the way she has always performed her devotion. The meal began. Soju was poured. Small conversations resumed. Aunt served me a piece of the fish she had prepared. The specific, ordinary quiet of a family gathering built around a dead woman. I waited until the second round of soju was poured. I took the folder Attorney Cho had prepared out of my bag. I placed it on the low table between the empty rice bowl and the plate of fried anchovies. I did not open it. Uncle, aunt, cousin Nim. I said it with the correct respect. Before Sora offers to help me with any more paperwork, I need you to read what is in this folder. All of you, together. The room did not go silent. Not right away. First there was the small, confused laugh from a younger cousin. Then the uncle set down his soju cup. Then the aunt reached for the folder. The folder had a summary page on top. Attorney Cho had written it in a specific dry tone, the kind of prose that presents facts without editorializing. 6 lines, names, dates, the amount, the account, the forged signature, the relationship. The aunt read it slowly. Her face did the thing faces do when they arrive at a piece of information the body knew before the mind did. She passed the page to the uncle. She did not look at Sora. Sora tried to speak. She said, "This is a misunderstanding." Unnie is still confused from her medication. She said it with the specific composure that had worked in every room of her life. It did not work in this one. The uncle read. He read for a long time. He was a man who read slowly. When he was finished, he set the folder down. He did not look at Sora either. He looked at my mother's portrait at the head of the table. He said one sentence. He said it quietly. He said it to the portrait, not to Sora. He said, "Sister-in-law, forgive us. We did not raise her right." Then he turned to Sora. He said, "Get out of this house. Do not come to my mother's grave. Do not call your aunt. Do not call me. He said it without raising his voice. He said it with the specific finality of a family door closing. Sora stood up. She looked around the table for an ally. She did not find one. The aunt was crying quietly with her hand over her mouth. The cousins were looking at the floor. My mother's portrait was looking at nothing at all. She walked to the entryway. She put on her cream coat. Her hands were shaking. That was the only physical thing about her that had ever shaken. She did not turn around. She opened the door and she walked out into the cold November afternoon. I did not say her name. I did not stand up. I did not follow her to the door. Some doors, once they close, should not be reopened, even by the person who still has the key. The aunt made me stay for the rest of the meal. She said, "Your mother would want you to eat." She served me herself. She served me the small piece of fish from the belly of the mackerel that my mother had always saved for me. She had remembered. Before I left the uncle's house that afternoon, I bowed to my mother's portrait one more time. Not the ceremonial bow, a private one. The kind you make when you are alone with someone. I did not say anything to the portrait. I did not need to. Some conversations are held in the physical fact of a body moving to the floor and back up again. That is what a Korean bow is. That is what a Korean bow has always been. I did not go back to my mother's apartment after that. Attorney Cho had recovered it procedurally. The paperwork was in my name. I could have moved back in the following week. I chose not to. Some places, once someone else has walked through them with a key that was never theirs, stop being the place you remember. The walls hold the older memory. The keys have to be different. I sold the apartment, legally this time, slowly. To a young couple with a small daughter who cried when she saw the window that looked out on nothing in particular. I put the money in an account only I could access. I bought a small place in Angukdong, 12 Pyeong old building, 1 bedroom. A window that looked out on a small stone courtyard with a persimmon tree. The persimmon tree had fruit on it. It was late summer by then. I brought only 3 things from the Mapo apartment. My mother's photograph, her ceramic mug with the small brown chip, and a small wooden box she had kept on her bedside table. I did not open the box for a long time. When I did, there was a folded letter in it, addressed to me, in my mother's handwriting. That is a story for another day. In-suk was released 2 months after I was. Attorney Cho had reviewed her case as well, and had found procedural errors that had never been corrected. In-suk moved into a small studio in Junho, 15 minutes from my apartment on foot. We had coffee together on Sunday mornings. She read 3 newspapers before I arrived. She had opinions about all of them. She had never lost the sharpness. It had only been waiting for a room that would let it out. I did not hear from Sora. Not once. Not a message. Not a call. Not a letter. The family had done what the family does. She had been unmade from the family record. Aunt did not send me updates. I did not ask. I heard, once, months later, from a cousin who called about something else, that Sora had moved to Busan, that she was working in a smaller cosmetics company, that she had not been seen at any family gathering since. I said, "That is her life to shape. It is no longer mine." Junho, I never heard from at all. Attorney Cho had informed me he had left the construction firm. Something about a demotion. Something about the reputation of his direct manager finding out. I did not ask for details. Some mornings I make coffee in my mother's cup. I sit at the small table by the window. I look at the persimmon tree. I think about the woman I was in the golden past of the Mapo apartment, and I feel neither pity for her nor pride in what came after. She was a woman who had thought family was a room with no locks. She was not naive. She was hopeful. The two are not the same sentence. I did not become a person who no longer trusts. That would have been another kind of prison. I became a person who understands that trust is a key, and keys can be duplicated, and it is my job to know how many exist and who is holding them. I keep only one key to my apartment. I do not give copies, not to Attorney Cho, who does not need one, not to Insuk, who has never asked, not even to the small emergency box in the building's manager office. This is a room only I walk into. It is a small apartment, 12 pyong. There is no room here for anyone but me. That is not a description of a limitation. That is a description of a decision. The apartment where my mother died was small, 23 pyong, on the 6th floor of a beige building in Mapo. It was where she had raised us, and for a long time I thought it was where I would raise my own children, and it was mine. It was not, in the end, mine to keep. What I kept was smaller, quieter, the specific silence of a room where no one else has ever had a key. That silence is not loneliness. Loneliness is the wrong word for it. There is not a word for it in Korean either. I have looked. I told you, every layer. Take care of yourselves.